Hey everybody, just like the title says, I'm learning to love gesso. I do use it to prep some of my pages, but I never really play with it any other way. So this video is really about some experimentation that I just wanted to share my process with you. I'm using some clear gesso and some gelatos to start out with. Excuse me, and I'm just going to shave a little bit off. I'm going to clean that one off first. I'm just going to shave a little bit off and mix it with the gesso and see how colored gesso or how the gelatos color the gesso. I didn't want to use white gesso because I did not want the colors to be lighter. I wanted them as rich as possible, so that's why I'm using the clear gesso. Now, as you can see, I'm just mashing it up in there. It's actually really easy to mix these gelatos, and the green is turning out kind of light, and I'm sure I could have darkened it up some more if I used more of the gelato shavings. But this will work for now. It's part of the experimentation. And this purple is nice and rich. It's a really lovely color. I like that. Now I got it mixed up really well there. Now I just want to, I'm playing around here just to see how these mix together. Not bad. I definitely will do this again to make some really nice colors. So I'm just going to use a stencil. I know for a fact, because this is running, that this is actually going to go under my stencil as I'm using it. And I really should have just put the gesso down and laid the stencil in there. But anyway, I just wanted to see how this worked. And I'm using this catalyst for the first time, and it's really nice and smooth application using this tool here. I really like it. It really gets the gesso down on there. And I'm just mixing these colors together as I'm putting it on the stencil. I like this application. So I'm going to set this aside to dry, and now I'm going to use I'm going to mix up the colors again, shaving them up, just chopping that up just a little bit finer, so it'll be, look, I'm like a chef there. And I'm going to try something else there. But this technique of using the gelatos and the gesso, I really like that. You can also mix it with acrylic paints, I'm sure, but I really wanted to try these gelatos. I don't use my gelatos a lot, so I just wanted to see how that would work out. But I am really digging this purple. This is a journal page that I did not love, so I'm just going to try to doctor it up a little bit. I'm just putting some freezer paper to protect my other pages underneath. And because I'm going over this page with the gesso, it's actually disturbing the inks underneath, and it's smearing a bit. So that's something to think about if you're going to try this application. At this point, I don't care, because I'm just playing around. And I thought I'd try to sculpt a little flower. Set that aside to dry. And now I want to see how the gesso works with a spray ink, the new spray stains rather. This is antique linen, and it kind of looks like a latte color. I like that. It's nice and light. And I'm just going to try this on a manila tag, and I'm just really putting it on here to see about getting some texture on my tags, and how that's gonna work. I'm just trying to add some texture, build it up there. And I'll set that aside to dry. Now I want to try some stains with the gesso. This is one of my favorite colors, this Spice Marmalade. I really like that. And again, I'm just plopping it on my tag, and I'm going to make another flower. These are the only flowers that I know how to make. I don't know what they are, like poppy-ish type flowers, but I guess I need to study some flowers. Now I'm trying the Heidi Swap Sweet Cherry and mixing that in on top, and trying to get it a little bit darker here. And I'm just going to go back over that spicy marmalade and again make my poppy shape flower. And just trying to get some texture with this catalyst. Does anybody know why they call it a catalyst? I have to look that up. I would call it a spatula, but what do I know? And now I'm just sprayed some water over this and just spreading it around to dry. And I just wanted to see what that would look like later. This is dry. The paper did warp a little bit, but I really do like how the colors are still vibrant. It didn't dry darker or lighter. And I'm just going to put some stain down just to kind of finish the page, and I'll come back at some time in the future and do something on this page. But I like when I went over some of this colored gesso with the stain that it colored it, but it didn't really, you could tell that it's just that it's been colored over. So I'm definitely going to try this again in the future. And we're back to that latte tag. You can see all that texture on there. I wanted to try this out with a stencil to see how stenciling it on top of this on this gesso would work, but my baby wipe actually is too wet, so the stencil didn't work out the way I want it to. I turned it over on the back just to make sure, and yeah, that's a fail. So I decided I'd start stamping on it to see how the gesso would hold up to me stamping on top of it on this tag. And I actually forgot I was filming, and I kind of went on and on a little bit with this technique. I really got into it. So please bear with me. I do like how the gesso reacts with the distress inks. I'm using a water brush, and it's really spreading the color out really nicely. So that's why I ended up getting so into it. I was enjoying myself here. And definitely a little goes a long way on this gesso. This is pretty much the finished product. Like I said, I really liked how that worked out. So we're back to this tag, and I'm now going to use a distress marker to try to figure out where these petals are and shape this flower. I apologize, it's out of focus right now, but it will come into focus here in a minute. And so I'm just lightly going over that with my water brush, and just taking my time in defining these petals. And I like how the gesso has really, the color holds up really well. These gelatos holds up really well mixed in with the clear gesso. You're really not going to lose, it doesn't look like you're going to lose any of the color variation at all. Now I'm going to take a white acrylic pen, paint pen, and just kind of highlight around these petals and just try to make it look a little bit, I don't know, more artistic. And this gesso is allowing me to really smear this this acrylic paint around too, so I like that. And now I'll try it on this poppy-ish purple flower. And again, I'll do the same thing, just trying to define the petals. This time I'm starting off with an acrylic paint pen to do that. Just adding a little bit of water to that paint. The color was really bright on there. I was trying to mute it some. Adding a little bit of gelato there in the center. And some more acrylic paint pen for some highlights. And why not add another acrylic paint pen to outline it? Why not? And there we go. And now we're back at that where I smeared it all and it's dry. Now I'm just putting some water on top and smearing it with my hands just to show that the color is really in there and it's not smearing at all. So now I want to I'm continuing on with this experiment, and I'm using a makeup sponge and dabbing my gesso into the stencil. Now I know this application is not going to have that gesso go underneath the stencil, so it will truly be stenciled. And I wanted to try this stencil, which is a finer, more intricate stencil, and I wanted to see how the gesso worked with this application. And as you can see, there's still a little bit of that spicy marmalade left on this stencil, and it came out on the gesso, and that's a nice little effect, I thought. So I'm just going to let these dry, and now they're dry, and I'm going to spray some distress ink on that and blot it off. And as you can see, it does resist a little bit, which is nice. The color's still on there, but it's just lighter where the gesso is. So I like that effect. It kind of gives an old world look, and I'm definitely going to try that application again in my journal. And now I'm directly putting stain on it and wiping it off, and again you can see the resist, and that's so cool. Now I'm adding some water to kind of distress it a little bit to see how that works. And if you add more water onto those spots there, and if you add more water onto it, it's going to distress it so much lighter on the gesso area. And I really like that. Just trying to give you an up-close look at some of that distressing. And now I have put gesso on half of the page. This is a journal that's just regular paper, and just showing why you would use the gesso in the first place to prep your page. And this is just acrylic paint that I use at the top, and the acrylic paint again with just a little bit of water. You can't really see it from here, this angle, but it has the gesso side has a really nice texture to it. And now I'm just using the distress stain. That's distress stain also. And you can kind of see in the center there where the gesso separates the page. And we're going to try some distress sprays, and then we'll come in with some gelato. I'm going to do it with just straight gelato and rubbing my finger, and you can tell on having a little bit trouble smearing it with on the paper side that's not gessoed. And now I'm just adding a little bit of water to the gelato. And when you turn the paper over, you can see on the side that was not gessoed that the colors actually seep through. So this is why you would want to prep the paper. See that on the left side there? That's where there wasn't any gesso, and that's why you would want to prep the paper. If you had some artwork on the other side, you wouldn't want to ruin it. So here's the finished products up close. So this was a great experiment. I like that. I think I am going to love gesso. I think I am going to use it a lot more now. I hope you try it. If you do, let me know what you think about it. And if you have any tips for me in using them, or any types of gessos that you like using over one or the other, I'd like to hear from you. Just leave me a comment. Thanks for watching. Come visit me at cporter8.blogspot.com or